Hello, my name is Isaac Kurtz, and today I will be talking about a paper and a study that I did. My paper was called "The Media and Expansive Polarization in the United States." So before I begin, I really want to get into a few things that I went through to kind of give you more context for what the study was about and trying to figure out what I'm talking about. So for media, which is a main part of my study, I defined it as a journalistic source of news or propaganda. That's my own personal definition. I didn't find that somewhere else. I felt like it was a good understanding of kind of what I'm looking at specifically. I want to make sure it's journalistic, not just like sports news or anything like that. And I want to make sure it was talking about propaganda as well. My goal was to examine some of the causes of increased polarization to understand what's causing the division and why. My main points were media's effects on the citizens' perception of facts and truth, and media's responsibility for the political polarization and division in the United States today. I wanted to look at the media's effect of the citizens' perception of facts and truth because I want to see, do people already have their own opinions and just watch the news to kind of reinforce their own opinions and their beliefs? Or does the media contribute more to that than we realize? I also want to look at the media's responsibility for the political polarization and division because I kind of want to see, like I said, like with the first part, is it really the news's fault, or do people already have these Harvard beliefs ingrained in them and that they're just reinforcing with the news? It's kind of my main points that I'm going through. So for my research question, I asked firstly, how much of the opposing political media and figures are already framed positively by the consumer before the media's portrayal? Meaning that the person watching this specific news channel already have positive opinions about who they're talking about who the news is talking about. And secondly, how much of the opposing political media and figures are already framed negatively by the consumer before the media's portrayal? Meaning, did the consumer or participant in the study already have a negative impact, like a negative idea or opinion of who the news is talking about? So for the literature review, I read 3 studies that I based my paper on. The first one was by Young Won in 2017. Excuse me. My main takeaway from it was that media can influence behavior and beliefs towards different political parties and opponents. Excuse me. For they had no evidence to show that positive, like-minded news gives any knowledge about candidates or any news at all, negative news as well. It didn't show that there was any knowledge presented. It only showed that like-minded media would increase participation, beliefs, and attitudes towards like-minded or positive opinion of people and groups. And it would, by proxy, decrease the amount of good news being presented about the negative side. So if it was a conservative show, they would have their viewers would increase with positive views of conservatives and would increase negative views of liberals, and vice versa. My second study that I went over was by Phillips and Yee from 2018. And my main takeaway from this was that media can incite violence and lead to solidifying extreme beliefs. This was talking about the Charlottesville Unite the Right from 2018, and I'm sorry, 2017. And it was very interesting because in the event there was a conservative alt-right march. They were doing a protest, and they had very unflattering and potentially troubling to some people views that they were posting on their websites and that they were screaming at the rally. They got everything that they needed. They had the certification. They had everything that they legally needed. A counter protest arose across the street. The judge could see what was going on. They were starting to have fights, and there was violence breaking out. So the judge called the police and said, "You know what? It's unlawful. We don't want this. We're revoking their permit," which caused even more violence, of course, and it ended up being very horrible. A couple people died, a few people were injured. It was very terrible. And afterwards, of course, the people on the right were saying that they're being persecuted because their free speech was infringed upon, which solidified a lot of people on that side's beliefs and ideology. And on the left, they were saying that they should change the definition of free speech because they claimed that it was apparent that the language being used and the rhetoric being spread was violent and caused violence. And in my third study that I went through was by Lewandowski and Malhotra from 2016. And my main takeaway was that media's rhetoric causes polarization of political views in America. And it was very interesting because they found that most people, want to see themselves in the middle as independent or very middle ground. They're very reasonable in the middle. They're not left or right. So whenever they hear news that's very negative about a specific side, they tend to shift towards the middle. I thought that was very interesting. But if they hear something positive, they tend to go whatever direction that positive news is spreading. So for my methods, I used a questionnaire with 4 sections. The first section was about popular media platforms and figures, being like Fox News, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, CNN with Anderson Cooper and Wolf Blitzer. Then I had PBS, and I also had New York Times with Charles Blow and Jamel Bowie. And for PBS, I had Amy Holmes and Ann Curry. So for for sample, I had 9 males, 3 females. It's 12 participants in total. I had 4 liberals, 5 moderates, and 3 conservatives. 4 Democrats, 5 independents, and 3 Republicans. 9 white or Caucasian people, 2 black or mixed people, and 1 Palestinian woman. And the average age was about 33.17 years old. I had a lot of people around college age, being like early 20s, and I had a few older people that kind of brought the age up. So in the results, there were a lot of main themes that rose. There's untrustworthy news sources. All but 1 person did not trust Fox News, and all but 1 person did not trust CNN. Everyone, even people that are on the sides that they claim those sources to be on, didn't like them. Fox, everyone said was very right-leaning. CNN, everyone said was very left-leaning. For New York Times, 9 believed it was trustworthy, but the rest did not, saying it was very left-leaning and very biased against the right. There was a lot of unfamiliarity with commenters like Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson, Anderson Cooper, Wolf Blitzer, and so on. But there's only about 1 person said, 4 people said that they trusted PBS as a news source, that they even knew who it was. 1 person said it was bad, but everyone else is very unfamiliar with it. For Donald Trump, people said that he's unstable, he's uncaring, he's reckless, he's embarrassing, but about half of the people said he's at least a decent president, if not a great president. And the other half said that he is not that great a president, if not an absolute horrible president. For Joe Biden, everyone said that he's too old to be president. A few people said that everyone seemed to think he's kind, with the exception of a few. There were a lot of people that said that he's communist or socialist, and that he should not be in office for that reason as well. The third-party candidates, no one felt comfortable answering a question. Either they were unfamiliar with the candidates, or they didn't feel familiar enough to actually give a response. For the Republican Party, all but 1 had a negative view on it. The 1 person said that it's a good party that stands for what he believes it should stand for. Everyone else said that it does not stand for what it claims to, and that's incredibly corrupt and not doing what it's supposed to. The Democratic Party had very similar results, but a few people had some more positive views on it. They didn't like it, but it's more positive than it was for the Republicans. The main sources of information that people believed were mainly Fox News, BBC, social media, talk radio, and the New York Times. Fox was more conservatives and maybe some independents that are right-leaning that said they follow Fox News. BBC was kind of universal. The people who listened to it were from all sides. There were only a few people that did. Social media was everyone. Everyone uses Facebook was as a source, and talk radio was one participant, but he used it for everything. So to summarize, the news does have a lot of issues. They are very not doing a great job of keeping things middle ground, at least according to the results of the study. People are incredibly divided and claim that either the news is biased or spreading false information. And it's not doing a great job, and that no one seems to like anything political. The only positives being that Joe Biden appears to be a decent man, and that Democratic Party might not be as bad as the Republican Party. The limitations that I had with this study were quite a lot. I had difficult time scheduling people. We only had a very small time allotted to us to get the interviews done. Some of my questions had a lot to be desired. I asked about different news information, like what do you believe? Where do you get your information from? And people would say it became over routine as opposed to actually answering the question thoughtfully. And there were some uncomfortable demographic questions that people felt uneasy by, and the sample size was very small for what I wanted. So for future research, I think have better schedule, have more direct questions that ask better, get better information out of people, um, and try to find a better sample size. And in my conclusion, from what I've seen in this study, it makes sense why America is so divided because no one trusts the news, but the news sources they do trust, they think is biased towards the other side, and they don't seem to care.